Picture this for a second. A guy walks into a room with his chest puffed up, speaking louder than everyone else, making sure no one can ignore him. He wants the whole place to know he's someone who shouldn't be crossed. And yes, everyone notices him. People remember him. At first glance, you might even think, wow, that guy must be really strong, really confident. But here's the truth, that completely flips that idea on its head. Machiavelli, one of the greatest minds to ever study power and human behavior, would look at this man and shake his head. Not because the man lacks courage, but because he doesn't understand what real strength looks like, what real power actually is. Machiavelli once said that the best way to measure the intelligence of a leader is to look at the people he surrounds himself with. And here's where acting tough becomes a trap. When you project toughness in a loud, aggressive way, you don't attract loyal allies who want to stand with you. You attract opportunists. You attract people who will use you when it suits them, wait for you to slip, and then either replace you or destroy you. The person making the most noise in the room is almost never the most powerful. More often than not, they're the most insecure person there. Machiavelli's lesson is clear. The need to prove how strong you are is proof that you don't truly feel strong. Real strength doesn't shout. Real power hides its claws and moves without announcing itself. Go anywhere, a gym, an office, a bar, and you'll see this same pattern play out again and again. People confusing loudness with authority, aggression with confidence, intimidation with respect. They raise their voices more than they need to. They take up more space than they should. They turn every small talk into a contest, every casual moment into a test of dominance. And they think that this makes them look powerful. But Machiavelli would tell you that they're doing the exact opposite. They are broadcasting their weakness. They are putting on a performance, not for others, but for themselves. It's like they are holding a sign that says, "Please believe I am strong," because deep down, I'm not sure I am. And here's the part that really matters. Everyone around them notices this. People aren't as blind as the tough guy thinks. The smart ones are watching and thinking, this person can be manipulated. The dangerous ones are thinking, this person just made himself a target. And the most valuable, strategic people, they quietly walk away, deciding this is someone they never want to work with or rely on. Machiavelli explained why this happens. People do not truly respect loud confidence. They respect quiet confidence. They are not scared of obvious loud aggression. They are scared of quiet, intelligent unpredictability. They do not follow the person screaming for respect. They follow the person who proves, through action, that they deserve it. And this is where the first big mistake happens for the tough guy. He keeps escalating situations he is not equipped to handle. He makes promises he cannot keep. He gets himself into conflicts he has no real chance of winning. Machiavelli had a very clear rule about this. Never start a war you cannot win. But the modern tough guy breaks this rule every single day. He picks fights with the wrong people, at the wrong time, in the wrong place. He takes what could have been a simple disagreement and turns it into a massive, life-changing problem. And when the consequences show up, they show up harder than he ever expected. Here's the painful truth that crushes most people who live in this fake tough mindset. Once you escalate, once you turn up the volume, once you step forward aggressively, you lose control over what happens next. You've lit a fuse, but you don't know how long that fuse is, or what kind of explosion is waiting at the other end. Machiavelli understood this perfectly. He said that a wise man does immediately what a fool waits to do until it's too late. The fool acts first and thinks about the cost afterward. The wise man pauses, looks at all possible outcomes, and then decides if action is even necessary. The tough guy does the opposite. He runs on pure emotion. Someone disrespects him at work. He snaps back without thinking. Someone cuts him off in traffic. He tries to start a fight on the road. Someone challenges him at a bar. He can't back down because he thinks that would make him look weak. But what he doesn't realize is that every single one of these moments is a gamble where he can only lose. Think about it. Best case scenario, nothing serious happens, and he ends up looking foolish for making a scene over something small. Worst case scenario, he runs into someone who actually is dangerous, actually has power, actually knows how to handle conflict, and then the tough guy suddenly becomes the victim of a situation he created. The truth is, real predators don't need to act tough. They don't need to prove anything. They move in silence. They wait for the perfect moment, and when they strike, it's quick, precise, and devastating. The person who actually holds power doesn't need to get into random confrontations. They don't need to win every argument or show dominance in every room. And this is where fake toughness becomes dangerous. Not just embarrassing, but dangerous. Because now, you're inviting retaliation from people who operate on a completely different level than you do. The quiet guy you humiliated might have connections you don't know about. The woman you tried to intimidate might have more influence than you ever expected. The employee you bullied might have been collecting evidence all along. Machiavelli had a name for this kind of downfall: the fortune of fools. When ignorance and arrogance give you temporary wins, but eventually drag you into a crushing defeat. The tough guy wins the small fights, but loses the bigger wars, often without even realizing there was a war happening. And what's worse, everyone around him sees this crash coming long before he does. While he's busy trying to look strong, everyone else is thinking strategically and preparing for the moment he falls. Machiavelli famously said that it is better to be feared than loved, if you can't be both. But what he also teaches us is that being underestimated is often far more powerful than being feared. When you let everyone see exactly how strong you are, you make yourself vulnerable. Visibility equals vulnerability. The tough guy makes himself the most visible target in every room. People notice him. Remember every confrontation he has. Keep mental notes of his behavior. And the result is predictable. He becomes the problem that other people decide needs to be solved. And they don't confront him head-on, because that would be too obvious. They wait. They document. They set things in motion behind the scenes. Watch how this plays out in workplaces. The guy who tries to lead through fear eventually becomes the center of HR investigations. His angry emails get saved and sent to management. His heated moments in meetings get written down and reported. His reputation starts to work against him. And here the party doesn't he understand, while he thinks he is winning because people seem to back down in front of him. What's really happening is that they're quietly building a case against him. Machiavelli called this the blindness of the tyrant. The inability to see that what looks like respect might actually be resentment, that what looks like obedience might be the calm before revenge. And in today's world, this can be brutal. The guy in the gym who bullies everyone eventually meets someone who's actually a trained fighter. The office bully who pushes everyone eventually pushes the wrong person, someone with authority to end his career. The online tough guy who insults strangers eventually faces someone who can expose him, sue him, or completely ruin his image. The tough guy never considers that in the modern world, every word, every action, every moment can be captured, saved, and used against him. Every aggressive outburst becomes evidence. Every threat becomes a record. And slowly, without realizing it, he makes everyone around him his enemy. People who could have stayed neutral now want to see him fail. People who might have supported him now quietly hope for his downfall. This is what Machiavelli meant when he warned about making yourself odious, when your presence itself becomes a problem that others decide needs to be removed. When your behavior turns you into a threat that others feel obligated to neutralize. And when that day comes, the solution never looks like what the tough guy imagined, because he expected a fair fight. Instead, he gets outmaneuvered. Here is the brutal career-ending truth about fake toughness. It destroys your credibility faster than almost anything else you can do. Credibility is built on being calm, reliable, and competent. But the tough guy shows the opposite. He's emotional. He's reactive. He's more focused on proving dominance than getting results. And that is exactly why he loses in the long run. In professional settings, watch what happens. The manager who tries to lead with fear ends up losing the respect of everyone, both the people above him and the people below him. His bosses start to see him as a liability. His employees see him as insecure and incompetent. Machiavelli was clear on this. Leadership is about influence, not force. He wrote that the best fortress a ruler can have is the loyalty and goodwill of the people. But the tough guy builds his fortress out of fear, and fear is a weak fortress. It crumbles quickly. Fear might get you compliance, but it won't get you trust. People might do what you say, but they won't go the extra mile. They won't bring you new ideas. They won't take initiative. And while you think you're in control, your reputation is spreading like wildfire. Stories of your blow-ups, your threats, your explosive meetings, they become part of the office gossip. Your behavior becomes the example of what not to do. And reputation matters everywhere, not just at work. It decides who wants to work with you, who trusts you, who includes you in important decisions. It determines what opportunities come your way and which ones quietly pass you by. But the tough guy doesn't see it until it's too late. He can't understand why he keeps getting passed over for promotions. He can't figure out why people seem to avoid him in meetings. He doesn't get why his good ideas get ignored. But Machiavelli already gave us the answer. Power flows to the people who can be trusted with it, not the people who demand it, but the people who show they can carry it with responsibility. And the tough guy proves every day that he can't. Every outburst proves he lacks control. Every confrontation proves he can't stay level-headed. Every aggressive move shows he values ego more than results. And once that label sticks, once he's known as the difficult person, the hothead, the problem employee, it follows him everywhere. References get checked, stories get shared, reputations spread, and the people who end up surpassing him, they're usually the ones he dismissed as weak, because they chose strategy over aggression, diplomacy over intimidation, influence over empty displays of power. And that's the cruelest part of all. As Machiavelli said, everyone sees what you seem to be, but few know what you truly are. The performance of toughness almost always hides a fragile core, and the people who rely on that performance end up revealing their weakness more clearly than anyone else. Because here's the hard truth, most people never tell you. Truly secure people waste energy proving they re-secure. People who are genuinely confident don't spend their time trying to make everyone notice it. People who are really strong don't have to remind the world that they are strong. They just are. Their presence says it without words. And this is where most people go wrong. They think strength is something you perform. They think toughness is something you show off like a badge. But the moment you start performing it, you reveal that you're not as sure of yourself as you want everyone to believe. That need to act tough, to puff your chest out, to always be on guard, to never let anyone see a hint of fear. That's not strength. That's fear of being seen as weak. And here's the thing, people can sense that fear. You know how you can tell when someone is forcing a laugh, or when someone is pretending to be confident, but their body language gives them away. Humans are wired to notice tiny signals. We can smell insecurity like smoke in the air, and the harder someone tries to look unshakable, the more obvious it becomes that they are, in fact, shaking on the inside. Machiavelli had a phrase for this: the appearance of virtue without the substance, looking the part but not actually being the part, wearing the costume of a hero but never having fought a real battle. And here's why this is so dangerous. When you turn toughness into your identity, you become a prisoner to the act. You can't let your guard down. You can't admit doubt. You can't ask for help. You can walk away from a fight even when you know it's the smarter move. Why? Because you think doing any of those things would make you look weak. And so you keep performing, day after day, year after year, until you forget who you actually are. Psychologists call this the imposter trap, the state of living inside a version of yourself that is exhausting to maintain, and it eats you alive from the inside. And yet, here's the irony, the truly powerful people don't live like this. They don't need to prove anything. They don't need to look strong because they are strong. They don't fear asking for help because they know collaboration doesn't make them weaker. It makes them more effective. They can be vulnerable when it matters because they understand that showing their human side makes people trust them more, not less. Machiavelli used a brilliant metaphor to describe this: the lion and the fox. He said a wise leader must be both. The lion is strong and brave, but can't avoid traps. The fox is cunning and clever, but can't fight wolves. You need both strength and strategy to survive. But the person who is always acting tough, they only know how to be the lion. They only know brute force, all intimidation, no intelligence, all noise, no subtlety. And that's what makes them predictable. And predictability is deadly in a world that rewards adaptability. Think about it. What happens when being aggressive stops working? What happens when yelling louder doesn't get results? The tough guy doesn't pivot. He doesn't change strategy. He just doubles down. He pushes harder. He gets louder. He escalates when he should be pulling back. And that's exactly when the real predators strike. The quiet ones. The strategic ones. The ones who've been studying his habits the whole time. They've been patiently waiting for the moment when his aggression becomes self-destructive. And when that moment comes, they make their move, and the tough guy never sees it coming. Machiavelli famously said, "Men judge more by the eye than by the hand," meaning people judge you by what they see, not what you secretly intend. And what they see when you're constantly performing toughness, strength, it's instability. They see someone ruled by emotions. They see someone who can be provoked, manipulated, thrown off balance, and that makes you vulnerable. This is why tough guys eventually find themselves isolated. Friends drift away, allies stop calling, opportunities quietly disappear. And here's why. Being around someone who is constantly posturing is exhausting. Every conversation feels like a potential fight. Every decision becomes a battle. Every interaction feels like walking through a minefield. Truly strong people, the kind who are actually busy building meaningful lives, avoid this energy. They don't have time to babysit someone's ego. They don't have time to keep proving they're not a threat. They're too busy creating, building, growing. And so the only people left around the tough guy are the ones who benefit from his aggression. Users, manipulators, weak followers. The ones who cheer him on when they need him to fight their battles. The ones who feel safer standing behind him, but who will vanish the second he becomes inconvenient. And here's the cruel twist. The tough guy thinks these people are his allies. He thinks they respect him. But the truth is, they're just there because he's useful to them in the moment. When his reputation turns toxic, when his aggression starts backfiring, when his toughness becomes a liability, they will distance themselves, and he will be left alone. This is what creates emotional isolation. Even if you're surrounded by people, you still feel lonely because none of them know the real you. And this isolation has real-world costs. You stop being invited to important conversations because no one wants to deal with your reactions. You stop getting opportunities because people see you as too unpredictable. You stop growing because you've made yourself hard to work with. Meanwhile, the people you once mocked as soft are quietly building alliances. They're forming relationships with decision makers. They're building trust with the right people. They're creating influence that lasts. And this is where Machiavelli's real insight becomes clear. Real power isn't about forcing people to obey you. It's about making people want to work with you. It's not about who fears you. It's about who trusts you. Fear might get you obedience today, but trust gets you loyalty tomorrow. And here's the part most people miss. Building that kind of trust requires vulnerability. It requires authenticity. It requires letting people see who you really are, not just who you pretend to be. And yes, this feels scary, because for many people who have been performing toughness for years, they've forgotten what genuine strength feels like. They've been acting confident for so long that they've lost touch with real confidence. Machiavelli's most famous quote is often misunderstood. "It is better to be feared than loved," he said. But he wasn't talking about fear of your temper. He wasn't telling you to be scary or violent. He was talking about fear of your consequences. Fear of what would happen if they lost you. Fear of losing someone so competent, so valuable, so capable, that opposing them would be foolish. There's a massive difference. When people fear your aggression, they either avoid you or secretly work against you. When they fear your competence, they respect you, admire you, and often want to stand beside you. Think about the people you genuinely respect. It's never the loudest person in the room. It's the one who doesn't need to talk big because everyone already knows they can deliver. The one who doesn't need to throw their weight around because their results speak louder than words. But here's the catch. That kind of respect takes time to build. It takes consistency. It takes actual skill. It takes showing up day after day and proving yourself through results, not performance. And this is where most tough guys get trapped, because they spend all their time maintaining the image. They stop doing the work that would actually make them valuable. Real power is about options. When people need what you provide, you have leverage. When they respect what you can accomplish, you have influence. When they trust your judgment, you have authority. And none of this requires acting tough. In fact, acting tough actively works against it. Because acting tough makes people trust you less. It makes them keep their guard up. It makes them see you as a risk instead of an asset. And that closes doors you might not even realize existed. The moment you stop performing toughness and start actually becoming strong, everything changes. People respect you more, not less. People trust you more, not less. Opportunities flow to you more easily because people want you involved. This is why Machiavelli said, "The wise man does at once what the fool does last." The fool waits until his life forces him to be strategic. The wise man is strategic from the start. He never has to wear a mask. So maybe the real question isn't, how do I look strong? Maybe it's, how do I become the kind of person people want to follow? Maybe it's how do I build real confidence, real value, real influence? Because the most dangerous people in any room are rarely the ones shouting. They are the ones who are quiet, calculated, and deeply competent. They are the ones who don't have to prove anything, because everyone already feels their power, and that's what you should aim for. To be so competent, so capable, so indispensable, that you no longer need to act tough. You no longer need the performance. You just are. And that's when you realize something life-changing. Real power doesn't feel heavy. It feels calm. It feels quiet. It feels stable. And you won't trade it for the fake performance ever again.